If you happen to fly into Philadelphia, get a window seat on the right side so that you can get a glimpse of the magnificent SS United States towering over Pier 82. But do it soon.
Use the right lane to take exit 20 onto Columbus Boulevard toward Washington Avenue.
Just a week ago, I was granted what I hope won't be my final visit to this spectacular apparition. Since 1996, she's been a fixture on the Philadelphia waterfront as various entities for her potential repurposing have come and gone. All in all, about 20 people were granted this special visit. Some of us flew in from as far as the U.S. West Coast, and others, like my friend Scott Davis, drove across several states.
Cheers! We're here to say goodbye for now, but hopefully not forever.
Absolutely.
Look at her! That is beautiful!
The SS United States Conservancy, the ship's current owners, provided this last-minute opportunity to visit, as there's a strong chance she may soon be reefed or scrapped. Welcoming us on the left is Susan Gibbs, granddaughter of the ship's designer, William Francis Gibbs. And that's Stanton Dewalt from the Conservancy's Advisory Council, who oversaw our visit. He's also co-author of an excellent book on the ship that I'll show in the next video.
Awesome. Or why don't we head to the forecastle, since I think...
Led by intrepid volunteer guide Julie Fox, we are off to one of my favorite spots on any ship, the forecastle.
Yes.
I've ever had. Being up here.
This is gorgeous.
God, she's so beautiful. What is wrong with this world?
This mighty prow used to cut through the Atlantic at speeds up to 35 knots, and those mid-century curves of her superstructure are now a lost art.
There's definitely a beauty in decay.
Even how depressing it might be with it.
Aluminum here.
She was one of the first ships designed with an aluminum superstructure to make her lighter and thus even faster. Her lifeboats and davits were removed in 1992 when she was towed to Ukraine for removal of her once celebrated fireproof interiors, which were filled with asbestos. And although she is largely stripped, this takes away the hardest obstacle from her potential repurposing as a hotel or museum.
Wow.
In 1984, the ship's then owners auctioned off her artworks, fittings, and furnishings with an unrealized plan to rebuild her as a modern cruise ship. The silver lining is that many of these items live on in private collections and a museum or two. But what remains, in spite of superficial rust and peeling paint, is one of the most inspiring and beautiful profiles ever put to sea. From her sleek aluminum radio mast that looks like a 1950s sci-fi apparition to those stupendously magnificent sampan funnels with their winged domes atop a teardrop base, she was the apotheosis of American design. Laid up at the mercy of the elements since 1969, her decks look worse for wear, but recent surveys have determined that her hull and superstructure remain structurally sound. And yes, those aluminum funnels are begging for a new coat of red, white, and blue, but the cost of first removing the old lead-based paint in an EPA-friendly manner is prohibitive. Instead of superficial upkeep, the Conservancy's limited funds have been applied to keeping the ship safely berthed with a small crew. The pier alone cost $850 a day until the rent was doubled in 2021. After an ensuing civil court trial, the Conservancy won the rent battle, but lost the war in keeping the ship where she is. With a deadline for removal by September 12th, the unthinkable options of reefing or scrapping loom. After visiting the top deck areas, we worked our way down and aft, passing the port-enclosed promenade where passengers strolled past while others sat in deck chairs, gazing out at the Atlantic. We'll return to the promenade deck, but here's the ship's fantail with one of her 4 bronze screws and the view from her aft upper deck docking wings that hovered over the sea.
Promenade deck.
Many ask why public tours have not been available, and this is part of the reason. The interior is a maze of dark spaces with trip hazards, missing railings, and other impediments, and access to the terminal requires a security clearance.
Love that light. Okay, and then out on the cabin class promenades to the Atlantic.
As a transatlantic liner, the United States was a 3-class ship with second-tier cabin class allocated in the aft part of the ship. Now just imagine peering over that stern when the ship was at full speed. We worked our way further down to the mooring area on aft main deck.
So crazy cool.
Yeah, I love this part. I actually only saw this for the first time yesterday.
I love it through the windows.
On main deck, there was the cabin class smoking room, which is originally decorated in a bright red and yellow color scheme, and the original bar remains in its aft section. From there, we worked our way back to upper deck and the cabin class lounge. Throughout the ship, much of the original linoleum decking remains. Although stripped to the bare steel, evidence of this ship's vintage grandeur remains. Her 1952 interiors, in addition to being fireproof, were sleek, minimalist, and ultra-modern, and were she to be preserved, they could be easily replicated. All it takes is a little imagination, and of course a budget. From the lounge on aft upper deck, we worked our way forward into first-class territory. This is the starboard alleyway, heading past what was once the ship's finest staterooms and suites. As you can see, with the removal of all the marinite or asbestos-laden panels, just the basic structural elements remain, ideally making it ready for rebuilding into comfortable modern accommodations. At one point, we paused to document what we thought was the former Duck Suite, where the Duke and Duchess of Windsor and other luminaries stayed.
And this would have been the shower.
From upper deck, we worked our way back up to aft promenade deck, where cabin and first class shared a large theater. On the United States maiden voyage in July of 1952, the movie Lovely to Look At was premiered here. It starred Katherine Grayson and Howard Keel. From there, we worked our way forward along the starboard promenade. Just imagine who you could have run into here during the ship's heyday. Margaret Truman, Rita Hayworth, Loretta Young, Cary Grant, or perhaps even Bob Hope, but not Kim Novak. She reportedly never left her suite. Oh, and those large round windows on the inboard bulkhead belong to the famous Navajo Lounge cocktail bar. And these big rectangular picture windows look out from the first-class ballroom. And this appears to be a storage locker, probably where those gorgeous aluminum deck chairs were stowed.
Or is this the card room? Writing room, tourist class writing room.
Interestingly, third-tier tourist class enjoyed the forward end of promenade deck, with a dedicated lounge, library, writing room, and cinema. Recently, RXR Realty, the famed design firm that turned the Eero Saarinen designed TWA terminal at JFK into a much admired hotel, devised similar plans to outfit the United States as a hotel, museum, and tourist attraction. Ideally in Manhattan, but the city of New York deemed it unfeasible. The plans and option to renovate the ship remain, open to a suitable location. It would be so nice to return to the United States without the need of scuba gear.
Sure.
Oh, and this is the first-class ballroom, which I'll describe in detail in the next video. And here on the port side is the elegant and exclusive restaurant space, while on the starboard side, this was the legendary Navajo Lounge cocktail bar. Back down on forward main deck, we visited the tourist class smoking room with its surviving bar, table bases, and freshly polished polka dot linoleum decking.
We still need to bring a ping pong paddle for the ping pong table upstairs. Somebody's got to be the last person to play ping pong in the United States.
From there, it was down to A deck and the tourist class dining room, where a very young Bill Clinton ate on his first crossing to Europe. Here, the linoleum featured a diagonal crisscross pattern, and watch your step around those table mounts.
Aft part of tourist class dining room, starboard side, facing forward.
Stalactite is down, stalagmite is up.
To get to the first class dining room, we had to go up, then aft, and then back down to main deck. Even on a bright sunny day, it was pitch dark in this part of the ship.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
And there was another distinctive
let me do that
linoleum
for you.
pattern
Keep the
at the
light on
dining
it for a
room's
sec.
entrance. The first class dining room had a musician's balcony
Very
in the
nice.
dome that soared over its inboard section. And again, I can't wait to share much more about it in the next video. Just aft, reached via the galley, we visited the cabin class dining room, then headed down to the pool on C deck, which was shared by first and cabin class. And while that still intact elevator was a nice find, we took the stairs. On the bulkhead behind the pool, enamel signal flags once spelled out, "Come on in, the water's fine." And somewhat ghoulishly, my request to visit the morgue in the cold stores area near the forward holds was granted. I guess you could say death is just another part of life. We wrapped up our 5-hour visit with an all too brief stop in the aft engine room.
Coming on down.
The most powerful machinery of its day was rumored to be capable of driving the United States at speeds up to or exceeding 50 miles an hour. The ship was built not only as a liner, but with troopship duties in mind during those Cold War years. Her power plant and much of her design elements were classified for decades. Fortunately, this beautiful ship never saw war service, but the irony is that if she had, it might have made it easier to preserve her.
Oh, nice.
Can you get that?
Yeah.
It wasn't easy disembarking that day, knowing that I might never step aboard or see this magnificent ship again. I'm eternally grateful to Susan Gibbs and the SS United States Conservancy for keeping the ship afloat against insurmountable odds and for providing this opportunity. I know for various reasons, many of you would rather see this ship reefed or scrapped to put her out of her perceived misery. I see it through a much different lens. She survived so much, and thanks to determined effort and perhaps a little luck, she's still with us. And to some, even now, she's still inspirational. What I wouldn't give to see that artfully peeling paint and those melancholy streaks of rust abated, to see that majestic profile towering over a welcoming berth. She's a survivor, and despite some hard knocks, so worthy of preservation. So yes, we have the Queen Mary and the Rotterdam, thankfully, and a handful of other lesser-known liners scattered around the world. But this is our ship, made in the USA with contributions from every one of the lower 48. We won't have another chance to save her if we don't act now. And one last thing, this is that book I was mentioning earlier about the SS United States, co-written by Stanton Dewalt.